What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G and the TCL Stylus 5G. Now, as always, if you do want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, we're getting a 6.4-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 403, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. With the TCL Stylus 5G, we're getting a really large 6.81-inch IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution as well, a PPI of 395, and a 20.5:9 aspect ratio. So on one hand, as you can clearly see here, when it comes to size, the TCL Stylus 5G definitely has an advantage. At 6.81 inches, this is really one of the larger smartphones you can get, whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G at 6.4 inches, it's about average, maybe a little bit below, because I want to say in 2023, the average smartphone display is around 6.5 inches, so definitely not bad with the A54 5G. But compared to the TCL Stylus 5G, if you are looking for a phone with a much larger display, the Stylus 5G clearly has an advantage. In addition to this, with a 20.5:9 aspect ratio versus 19.5:9 with the A54 5G, the TCL Stylus 5G has a taller and more narrow form factor. So if you're doing something like watching videos in landscape mode, for example, with the Stylus 5G, you're going to get a more immersive experience. And if you're doing something like reading or scrolling through social media, for example, with a taller and more narrow form factor, you can fit more content on the screen without having to scroll as much. So between the two, while again, the A54 5G is definitely not bad, when it comes to size and dimensions, the TCL Stylus 5G definitely has an advantage. That being said though, when it comes to image quality, it's a bit of a different story. With the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G having a Super AMOLED display, this is definitely a significant advantage because compared to an IPS LCD, first of all, the colors and brightness are going to be a little bit better with the Super AMOLED, and the viewing angles are also a bit better. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is going to be a lot easier to see. And with the 120Hz refresh rate versus a standard 60Hz with the TCL Stylus 5G, the movement on the screen with the A54 is going to be a little bit faster and smoother, making the phone feel more premium in general. So overall, really, if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has a nice display, you're not going to go wrong with either phone. But if size is more important to you, the TCL Stylus 5G will have an advantage. But if maybe you want something a bit more compact, or you prefer better image quality, the A54 5G will have an advantage. Now for storage, both phones have 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so no difference here. But keep in mind, with the A54 5G, there is another variant that has 256, whereas with the TCL Stylus 5G, we only have this one. But that being said, for the purpose of this comparison, the storage on these phones again is 128GB, and with the A54 5G, the common version you're typically going to find is the 128GB version anyway, so definitely keep this in mind. But in general, these phones definitely have plenty of storage, and for the average user, especially considering both have microSD card expansion, you're most likely not going to have to worry about running out of space. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners. With the A54 5G, it's right here in the display, and with the TCL Stylus 5G, it's on the power key. But starting with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, let's give the fingerprint scanners a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the TCL Stylus 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, remember, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, up front, we got a real nice looking hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. For video, this phone can record in up to 4K in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely nice to see here. With the TCL Stylus 5G, we got a pretty similar design for the selfie camera. This camera is 13 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, the features are pretty much the same. Both phones have an ultra wide camera and a macro camera, and despite the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G not having a depth sensing camera, portrait mode still works perfectly fine on this phone, so you're not going to have to worry about that. But keep in mind with the TCL Stylus 5G, when it comes to video, this phone does max out at 1080p in the front and rear cameras. So of course, if you do want to record 4K videos, you are going to want to go with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. Now, when it comes to photo quality, on one hand, the TCL Stylus 5G does take some really good photos, and for the average user, I feel like the quality you get with this phone is going going to be perfectly fine. But that being said, between the two, I would definitely say without a doubt, the photo quality with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is quite a bit better. Sure, on one hand, the TCL Stylus 5G is good enough for the average user, but the A54 5G is really on a whole different level. So if you're really using your camera a lot and you want to get the best photos you can for the money, then I would definitely consider going with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, because although this phone is a bit more expensive, first of all, depending on when you're watching this, carrier deals might equalize this anyway. And second of all, if you're really into taking pictures and that's one of the main things you're doing with your phone, I feel like the difference is enough to justify the price difference anyway. Now, to give you an idea of what they can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. So yeah, definitely great quality here. Maybe not quite flagship level. I still think something like the Google Pixel 6a or the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE is still going to be noticeably better, but for more of a mid-range phone, the photo quality here is really great. And for the average user, I feel like you're probably not going to need much more than this. I mean, if you're posting pictures on Instagram, for example, or even just taking pictures for fun just to take pictures, no matter what you're doing, unless you really need flagship level studio quality photos, the A54 5G is really going to be good enough for pretty much anything. And then here are some pictures taken with the TCL Stylus 5G. Overall, I definitely do think these pictures, kind of like the A54 5G, are good enough for the average user, but between the two, I would say the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is still quite a bit better. The details are a bit sharper, the colors and brightness are a bit nicer, and if you really do want the better camera between the two, the Samsung will have an advantage, but these pictures with the TCL Stylus 5G really aren't bad either. So if you're more of a casual camera user and you want some nice pictures for various different purposes, social media, sending to friends and family, and your own memories, stuff like that, despite the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G being a bit better, the TCL Stylus 5G will still get the job done. Now, when it comes to RAM and processor, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Exynos 1380 processor. With the TCL Stylus 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700. So for overall performance, for more basic activities, both phones are perfectly fine. I mean, if you're browsing the web, using social media, watching videos every now and then and stuff like that, you're really not going to go wrong with either phone. But between the two, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is significantly faster, and by quite a bit too. So if you're really going to be on your phone a lot, especially doing a bit more demanding activities like mobile gaming, for example, you will definitely get a much better experience with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. But again, if you're doing more basic activities and you're not really going to be using your phone a ton, maybe you're browsing the web and using social media a decent amount, but you're not going to be doing stuff like mobile gaming, for that kind of more basic use, the TCL Stylus 5G is still going to be plenty fast enough. But really, just to put it into perspective, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is close, not really quite at the level, but really close to the speed of something like the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or the Google Pixel 6a. Again, keep in mind, it's not quite flagship level, but it's really getting close to those entry-level flagship phones. Whereas with the TCL Stylus 5G, this is really more just an entry-level 5G phone, performance-wise comparable to something like the Motorola Moto G 5G, for example. So it's definitely a decently fast phone for what it is, but compared to the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, the Samsung is really on a completely different level. Now, when it comes to battery, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery. This supports 25W fast charging, and with the TCL Stylus 5G, we're getting a 4000 mAh battery. This supports 18W fast charging. So definitely between the two, the battery with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is better in pretty much every way. At 5000 mAh versus 4000, it's quite a bit larger, so the Samsung will get much better battery life. And with the fast charging, it's not really a huge difference, but 25 watts versus 18, still noticeable. So in general, if the battery is more of a priority for you, then I would definitely go with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. But if you're in a situation where maybe you have your phone plugged in most of the time anyway, then in my experience, the TCL Stylus 5G's battery is still perfectly fine. And although it's not going to last for multiple days or anything, you should be able to use it at least throughout the day without having to charge it too much. Now, when it comes to software, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, this phone does come with the Android 13 straight out of the box. And with Samsung software support, you can expect to get several other major updates in the future. With the TCL Stylus 5G though, unfortunately this phone does only have Android 12, which I guess it's not really bad, but considering we are in 2023 and we are on Android 13 at this point, it would have been nice to see this phone have the latest version of Android. Now, granted, this phone didn't even come out in 2023. It came out, I think, summer or fall of 2022, so to be fair, it's not really the newest phone out there, but TCL doesn't really seem to have the greatest software support either. I mean, it might eventually get Android 13, but if you really do care care about the software, I know for a fact when it comes to that, it's not going to beat Samsung. So in that case, between the two, the A54 5G will be the way to go. But if you're not really that concerned about having the latest version of Android, I mean, despite only having Android 12, I feel like a lot of non-Samsung phones in this price range only have Android 12 too, so it's nothing new and it's not like this phone has any performance issues because of it. So overall, if you're not really that concerned about the software, the TCL Stylus 5G is at least going to be okay. In addition to this, keep in mind, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, you'll be happy to know you won't have to worry about that with either phone. And then of course, in addition to this, as the name suggests, the TCL Stylus 5G does in fact have a stylus, whereas of course, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G does not. In fact, if you do want a Samsung with a stylus, I believe the only option you really have as far as newer phones go is the S23 Ultra, which is quite a bit more expensive than either of these phones. Honestly, I think it's more expensive than both of them combined. And in general, if you are looking for more of a budget phone with a stylus, besides a Motorola Moto G stylus, the TCL Stylus 5G is really one of your only options. So if you really do want that feature, definitely keep this in mind. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, I feel like in pretty much every way, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is the better device here, which doesn't really come as a surprise because, after all, compared to the TCL Stylus 5G, the A54 5G is a bit higher end. But that being said, that doesn't mean the A54 5G is going to make the most sense for everyone. For starters, again, clearly here, the TCL Stylus 5G is much larger, and it does have a nicer form factor at 20.5 by 9 versus again, 19.5 by 9 with the A54 5G. And on one hand, the image quality is quite a bit better with the A54 5G. A Super AMOLED display is definitely a great benefit, but at the same time, it's kind of subjective whether or not this is really worth it. Some people just want a larger display. I mean, for that matter, a Super AMOLED is debatably better than an IPS LCD, but does that mean the A54 5G is more enjoyable to use than your 4K TV? I'm gonna say probably not. So yeah, it's really subjective. So if you are looking for a phone that has a larger display and a nicer form factor, then between the two, the TCL Stylus 5G will actually have an advantage. But if you want a more premium looking and feeling display, then yeah, the A54 5G is definitely gonna be better. The A54 5G also does have a significantly better camera that can record 4K videos, but the TCL Stylus 5G's camera is really good too. And again, for the average user, I feel like this is really all you're gonna need. Sure, if you're taking photos all the time and that's really the main thing you're doing with your phone, between the two, you will want to go with the A54 5G. If not, spend a little bit more on something even higher end. But for the average user, while you will notice the difference between the two, it's not really going to be that crazy. So if you're not really that concerned about the camera, but you do want something at least decent, I feel like you might as well just get the TCL Stylus 5G, because in that case, if you don't really need that extra quality or the 4K video recording, spending an extra $200 or so on the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G might not be the best move for you. The performance is also an area where there's definitely a significant difference. Again, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is a lot faster, but with the TCL Stylus 5G, again, the MediaTek Dimensity 700 is definitely not a bad processor, and for the more average daily tasks like web browsing, social media, watching videos, and stuff like that, the TCL Stylus 5G will still get the job done just fine. So if that's really all you're doing and you're not going to be on your phone all day or anything, then yeah, while the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is a lot faster, the TCL Stylus 5G might be all you really need. The battery is an area where it's definitely a bit more questionable because on one hand, again, I really don't think the TCL Stylus 5G has a terrible battery, but you definitely do notice the difference. So if you really do want great battery life, you are probably going to want to go with the A54 5G, and for a lot of people, the price difference is probably still going to be worth it. The A54 5G also has significantly better software support, so that's definitely something to keep in mind too. On the other hand though, the TCL Stylus 5G again does have a stylus, which if you're going with Samsung, you're not going to get a stylus unless you spend over $1,000 on a flagship phone. And again, even outside Samsung, the Moto G Stylus 5G is really the only other option for a budget phone that has a stylus, so the TCL Stylus 5G is definitely unique in that sense. So in general, if you're really looking for more of a basic 5G phone that still has a really nice display, a good camera, plenty of storage, decent performance, and features like NFC and a stylus, the TCL Stylus 5G is going to be a perfectly fine choice for you. But on the other hand, if you want really nice display quality, a great camera that can also record 4K videos, a really large battery, and exceptional performance, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G will be a much better choice. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G and the TCL Stylus 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalibas Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.